Go ahead, tell me about this car. Why it's unusual.
Well, it's a four-door convertible. Usually you can find coupes that are convertibles, but there's very few of a car like this. And wealthy people have a car like this, and if they wanted to go out to the golf course or go on a picnic or something, they could put the top down and such. And it's...
Let's get a little bit closer to the car and tell me about it.
Me?
Yeah. You can open up the doors.
Oh. Then it has leather interior. It's all original except where you sit. They had to replace that. And it has what they call a banjo wheel, steering wheel. And then it's a pretty nice dash in there. But these cars were built by Cadillac, and the engine and everything is Cadillac, but they could, under the name LaSalle, they could sell them for less money, and they had to sell cars to keep alive. So Cadillac was smart. They built this car like the Peerless and some of those other cars. They just, and Pierce Arrow, they stayed with their big fine car, and they just gradually went broke. They didn't have a lesser car. And these cars, of course, are everything on it is quality. For instance, the running board is trimmed out in chrome front and back, and has the same hubcaps as a Cadillac, except that the insert on them, it says LaSalle instead of Cadillac. It's such a nice, easy car to drive, and I think it's a nice looking car, nice appearing, and it's not too terribly big. But I had it on the Iowa tour, or whatever, Motor Iowa, and I had it over in a little town, and an old man came walking along, and he was looking at all the different cars, and he finally came to this one, and he says, "Well, I've finally seen a decent car." He likes something big and old, you see. There aren't too many of these older cars. It takes old fellows like me to appreciate them, I guess. And they're more in the 50s and 60s and 70s even, and some 80s young fellows like, you see, and they drive those. And you can't blame them. But I'm from the old school, so this is my stuff.
Does it make you kind of sad to see something like that, this or some of the other cars that they turned into hot rods?
Well, yeah, I don't see many of them turned into hot rods, but a lot of them are. But usually they wouldn't take a car of this quality and make a hot rod. They'd take a Ford or Chevrolet or a Plymouth Coupe or something like that and make a hot rod. Very rarely do you see the big cars.
How did you say you got started doing this?
Well, I always liked old cars, and I got wind of an old car over near a country store over by Boone, and this man had bought this car new. It's a 1912 Model T Ford, and he had two daughters, but they didn't. One of them never married, and the other one married in older life. But the kids got where they wouldn't ride with him, because in those days, when the car got a few years old, you know, it was really old style, and so they refused to ride with the old man. So he finally quit driving the car, and he moved to town. And I had bought an old Austin Bantam car. A man came by there and wanted to sell it to me one day, and I had it in the garage. And one day, one of my customers came in. He said, "You interested in another one of these darn things?" And I said, "Yep." So he says, "Come with me." So I went out in west part of Ames and bought that Model T. And that started it. I don't know where these all came from, really. I can't imagine I got all these cars, but I'd gradually buy one here and there and the other place. And I'd go to auctions. And I don't know. I could tell you a story about every car, but it'd take too long.